Okay, this is a short video to show you how to extract parts using Finale's linked parts feature. So if you've never used it before, after you create a score, you can go to Manage Parts. There's all sorts of settings here about what you want your parts to look like. That's not what I'm going to go through here. I'm just going to hit the Generate Parts, and then that's where it will populate, like it has a soprano 1 part, a soprano 2 part, an alto part, and a piano part. So those are the parts of things you want. And then you can see those by going into Edit Part. Like here's just the soprano 1 part. And there's definitely changes we would make here about, maybe putting a little more space between systems like that, whatever. But what I wanted to address in this short video is simply when you go to that Manage Parts, sometimes you want, like say we wanted soprano 1, soprano 2, and alto all on the same part, not to have the piano there. So what you're saying is you'd like to create a new part. So we're going to go over here to New Part. And what do you want to call the part? Well, we're going to edit it and call it Voices. Just call it Voices, right? So it's all the voices, all three. Maybe Voices SSA, for instance. Okay, so that's the new part. And what do we want to have that part include? Over here, we add. So we're going to add the soprano 1, soprano 2, and alto. So Voices includes all three of those parts, right? And now we can say, okay. And then if we go back to Edit Part, notice one of the parts now is Voices. And that's the one that includes just our vocal stuff, but not the piano. And again, you'll use the same tools you normally use, like page layout, to put some more space between systems where you want more space and less space where you want less space. Things like this, like to make the part look better. And you can also reduce the size of the first page to make it 90% just for page 1 if you want to fit more in on page 1. And going to go back here and put a little space in between those like that. So all the kind of tools that you would use, I'm going to not indent it too, all the tools that you would normally use, maybe the staff tool to put a little more space between, that you're still going to use. But here in this part, you've just created a new part that consists of several of the other parts in combination. So hopefully this explains how to use that feature of the linked parts, which is a great feature. What I love about linked parts is that you make a change in the part. Like if I made a change in just the soprano part, let's say I took this C up an octave, boom, now it's up an octave. And I go back to the score, right? And that first C is up an octave. It's on the third space rather than the middle C. And if I take it down an octave in the score, and I go back to, let's go back to the Voices part, right? Now it's back down an octave. So they're linked, and that's why it's called linked score and parts. One other thing I want to mention is that if you change something on a part, like say I change the spacing here, it turns like a yellow, and that shows you that it's different on this part than it is, say, for the score. So if I go back to the score, it's at the same place as it was. Now, if you want, you can, by right-clicking or control-clicking, you can actually unlink or relink. Right now they're unlinked, but I could relink it so that they are in the same place. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. You don't have to have something on a part exactly the same on the score by unlinking them. They'll have their own sort of placement. And that's what I just did with that score expression. Let me wrap up this video on linked score and parts by just going over one thing that often comes up, and that is how do we name these parts? So the parts we create are the parts that are already there. So for instance, the soprano 1 doesn't have a name, soprano 1. So let me go back to the score. The most common way is to use the text tool, double click to get a field, and then under the text menu, just do one of the inserts. The insert we're going to use is called parts, part score name. So here it says score, and then if we go to our soprano 1 part, now it should say soprano 1, right? The name of the part is the part score insert there. By the way, you can go back and forth between the score and the parts without having to go to this menu here. The shortcut on a Mac, at least, is Option Command, and just use the arrow keys, forward arrow to go to the next part, like that. Now, one thing I did notice is that some of these parts it didn't add, like for instance soprano 2 it didn't. So I'm going to double click there and again go to the text menu and say insert part score name, and now it's got piano 2 in there. And I could do the same thing with this alto part. Text, insert, where's that part score name, and there's the alto. It actually did, let me go to the next one, put in automatically the voices. But if it didn't, let me take it out. If it didn't, right, we could double click here, go to the text menu and say inserts and say part score name, and then there it would be, and you can move it where you want it, and so forth. So that's how you can name your parts. And let me go back to the document here. And again, say I want to unlink these. So remember, I can right click. I'm going to unlink these so that when I drag this one over here and I go back to my other parts, they stay kind of where I wanted them to stay. So sometimes that's what I'll do for placement is I'll right click or control click and then unlink. So we're not going to relink it because we kind of want to have them independent on each page. Okay, hopefully this helps, and good luck with your finale score.